Welcome to the SolScript podcast. Here we explore how to unlock the power of our story. Our journey here on earth can be one of deep passion, intentional creation, and personal transformation. The only thing holding us back is our stories. Come and join me as we rewrite and reignite. Welcome to the very first SolScript podcast. I am very excited for this podcast, although I am also probably equally as terrified for this podcast. I'll let you in on a little secret. I actually already recorded this podcast one time, and I thought it was awesome, and I thought I nailed it. And when I went to go and edit it, I had just this overwhelming feeling that I needed to be more vulnerable. And that's saying a lot because I feel like I was basically as vulnerable as you get, but apparently it wasn't vulnerable enough. When I tuned in, I could just tell that I was still holding back a portion of myself, and I promised that I wasn't going to hold back that part of myself anymore. And so here we are. Take two. We are re-recording episode 1 of the SolScript podcast and just putting my whole heart and soul out there. And that is why it is so terrifying. I really hope that I can portray and tell my story with grace and be eloquent, and that'll be meaningful and purposeful and maybe, I don't know, inspire people. Like my own story has transformed me. I hope that maybe that transformation can pass on to other people. But I also know that I am human, that I will probably give advice on this podcast that I will soon forget and be a complete failure at. I don't guarantee that everything that I say here is the complete 100% truth. It is the truth for me as I know it at this moment. It is the best truth that I know, but it doesn't mean that it's the perfect, whole, or complete truth. I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I'm still on this journey of life. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of grace, just like how we all need grace in this life because we don't know what we're doing in reality. We think that we know what we're doing, and then when it comes down to it, we don't actually know what we're doing. So here's my best stab. Here are my experiences, my own personal journey, and that I can attest to. That I know is true. What I have experienced, what has come to me in my life, and I just want to share that with you today. Well, the start of it today. One story, one portion. And, like all good stories, I'm going to start at the beginning. So the beginning obviously starts when I was born. Actually, I think we could argue that it starts probably eons and eons before that, but I think that maybe that's a topic for another time. Today we're going to start just at the birth of me into this life. I was born in Utah, USA. I had a pretty normal childhood, I think you would say. And I guess I don't really know what normal is, but it's honestly probably pretty stereotypical, at least for like a Utah family. Mom, a dad, both of them worked. I have 3 siblings, and we all grew up, I don't know, in a pretty loving home, and we were all members of the LDS Church. Okay, I'm going to preface this really fast before we move on, that I don't want you to run away when I talk about specific kinds of religion or my version of God. I think that we are all on this planet essentially trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to figure out this grand cosmos and this earth that we live on and this life and relationships. We're all trying to connect to something bigger than ourselves. We're all trying to connect to, I don't know, maybe it's a God, maybe it's multiple gods, but I think that we all have the same purpose and that there are the same fundamentals that allow us to be able to progress and that allow us to connect and be our very, very best selves. And we can go into my personal religious journey on another podcast, but I wanted to paint this picture for you of who I was, how I grew up, and just give you a little bit of a background of who I am. So I grew up in an LDS family, and we were what they would call active. So we would go to church every Sunday. And I don't think I actually really had typical LDS parents. My dad grew up not very active in the church. And so his perspective on religion was very broad and open. And I'm super grateful for him and for bringing that into my life. But growing up, I honestly always have really loved God. I have loved and been so fascinated with all the things in like Bible stories that talk about, I don't know, spiritual gifts, miracles, angels, having thoughts, feelings, things that you can't see, kind of this intangible part of spirituality. I mean, that's what spirituality is, right? It's things that are like more on that intangible plane. And I always really had a strong fascination with that. But I didn't just have a strong fascination with my religion. I always just had a strong fascination with spirituality in general. And I remember being like really obsessed and loving just like the idea of yoga and yogis and Hinduism and Buddha and kind of more of that Eastern culture. And just feeling like there was something there, something that they understood that I didn't quite understand. And overall, just really, really have always loved spirituality and being spiritual and talking about spirituality. But on the flip side, I'm also what you would call a 7 on the Enneagram. So I'm like just passionate, joyful, just love to get outside and play. I think that the world is at our feet as human beings, that we just get to live intentionally, and that this life isn't just meant for going through and surviving, but it's actually meant to be thriving. And that has been a part of me my entire life as well. I really work to play. So hopefully that paints a little bit of a picture of who I am / who I was. And let's fast forward a little bit to about 7 years ago. I'm married. I got married at the age of 19, which is not that crazy for somebody in the LDS community. And I also had my first child at the age of 20. And she was like an oopsie baby. I was not at all ready to have a child, especially because my greatest aspirations in life were to travel and explore and rock climb and hike. And me and my husband met and connected initially off of our love for these same things together. We loved to rock climb and canyoneer, and that was always such a big part of our relationship. And then having a baby, I mean, kind of ruined it. Like, we went backpacking and camping so many times on that first year, and then we had a baby. And it was one of the hardest times in my life. I have definitely experienced depression before that point, at least to some degree. I remember sitting in the high school locker, like gym locker room, and talking to my friend and having this realization, like, I think I might be depressed. Is that a thing? Like, can you be depressed in high school? And I remember she gave me this weird look like, and then just kind of walked away like she had no idea what to do with that information. But the depression hit really, really hard after I had my first. Her name is Denali. And it didn't really ever go away. I had my second child 2 years after that, and then my third child another 2 years after that. So they're all about 2 years apart in age. They're all girls. And I think we kind of had decided, well, if we're going to have a kid this early, we might as well just pop them all out and get them done with, and raise them up to an age where they can go on adventures with us and they can be independent and we can kind of get our lives back, is a little bit of our mentality at the time. And so we popped out all those babies, and we had just had our third, and we moved into a new neighborhood, which meant a new ward for our church. Our church groups are called wards. And I remember essentially getting to my rock bottom, essentially being so depressed for so many years and just completely losing myself. And I know that if you've ever been depressed, like, you know what this feels like, where you look around at your life and you think, well, like, I should be happy and I don't really have a reason to be depressed. I grew up in a loving family. I have wonderful, healthy children. My husband has a job. We may not be rolling in tons of money, but we have a house. We are provided for. I should be happy. And no matter how much I try, I just can't be. I'm really trying so hard here, but I just can't find it. And I would remember calling out to God and just pleading to him and just begging on my knees and just saying, God, like, please, if you're there, I know that you can take this away from me. Why do I have to suffer? What have I done wrong? What do I need to do more of? Am I sinning? Am I not, like, giving enough to my neighbors? Do I need to pay more in my tithing? What do I have to do in order to, like, feel better, in order to feel passionate, in order to know who I am and also know who you are and where you are? Because right now I don't know where you are. And honestly, God, I have been asking for you for a really long time. These have been long, long years. And I don't think you're showing up for me. I'm so done with this. I am so done with this. And I would go and attend church, and I would pray, and I would do my best, and I tried to be the best mom that I could be. And I just felt nothing. Nothing. When I went to church, I didn't feel good. I had no idea where God was. I didn't feel community. I didn't feel supported. I had this empty hole in my heart. And it got to the point where I got real sassy with God. And I was like, man, this is it. This is it. I'm going to go to church one more time. And if you don't show up for me, we're done. I'm not going to church anymore. I'm going to throw you out the window. Now, I cannot say that I recommend giving God an ultimatum, although I do think you should be real with him. And I do think the more real you are with him, the better it's going to be. Your prayers don't have to be, like, really formal and scripted. Like, the more real they are, the better. but maybe don't give him like an ultimatum. But I told him that. I said, I'm going to go to church one more time. If you don't show up with me, for me, somehow, we're done. So I get my kids all ready for church, which is a thing. Get myself ready for church, walk in, and I sit down in sacrament meeting. Now, sacrament meeting is the first meeting of like the church service. And although there is a bishop to our church group or our ward, they also invite members from the church congregation to speak. And so a new couple had moved into our neighborhood, and it's very typical for a new family to get up and speak in sacrament meeting. I'm sitting there and basically sit down on the bench with just this like, well, let's see how you're going to show up for me today. And I'm just egging God on. And I sit down, we take the sacrament, and then a woman stands up, this new woman in our ward. And she gets up and starts introducing herself. And as she starts introducing herself, saying things like, this is where we live, this is where we came from, my name's Lindsay, I have 3 daughters. She also has 3 daughters just like me. And for some reason, this feeling of intensity came over my whole body to the point where I was shaking, like I had chills or that I was freezing cold. My whole body was shaking, and I just erupted in emotion, and I just poured out tears from like my whole body. I don't think there was probably any more liquid left in me after this sacrament meeting, and I just knew. And I don't even know how I knew. I didn't know at the time how I knew, but I knew I had to know this woman. So I took a piece of paper and I scribbled a note on it that said something like, "Hi, my name is Laura. You don't know me. I'm the weirdo next door. Here's my phone number. I'm supposed to know you. Thanks so much. Bye." I don't actually remember what it said, but it was something very simple and like that. And I knew that I had to give her a note because I had cried so much, and I knew that if I opened my mouth, I would cry again. So I walked up to her after sacrament meeting and just thrust this piece of paper into her hand and walked away like a complete weirdo. I was sure that she would not text back. Because I don't know, it was weird. I was weird. But the cool thing is that she did. I think later that day I got a text message from her that said, "Hey, thank you so much for the note. Would you like to come over to my house sometime?" And she invited me, the weirdo next door, over to her house. And I, of course, said, "Yes, absolutely. I don't know who you are or what you have for me, but for some reason, I am supposed to know you." So I walk over to her house, I think later that week, and knock on her door and just awkwardly "Hi, I'm Laura. And yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here." She welcomes me in. She's like, "Hi, come on in." And she told me that she was actually really used to stuff like this happening, and that I wasn't the first person who had approached her in her lifetime saying, "I have to know you." And the cool thing about Lindsay and this experience is that immediately our conversation got deep real fast. And I saw Lindsay really fast. And she put me into a zone where I could be myself really fast. And now I thrive and love these types of conversations where we can just get past all the BS. And it doesn't have to be deep. We don't have to be crying. We don't have to be talking about spirituality. But when I can see the person and when they are safe enough and trusting enough to open up and be who they are immediately, oh my gosh, that is just the yummiest conversations ever. And that was the kind of conversation that I had with Lindsay. She immediately impressed me and surprised me because she talked about her mission, like her life mission that she felt she had received from God. And that mission was to connect people to the divine. And I was like, oh, really? Because I'm here because I don't know where God is and I miss him and I don't know how to connect with him. and she was like, yeah, I get it. I do this a lot. And her confidence was just like, whoa, you do this a lot? People just come to you and you just know your mission. So our conversation continues. And it ultimately comes out that as part of what she does, she likes to host retreats. And they're spiritual retreats. They're titled Connecting to the Divine. And she co-hosts them with her friend Charlotte. Right then and there, she tells me, in not a sales pitchy way at all. She wasn't forcing me to go. You could tell that she wasn't like, I have to have this spot filled. She was like, hey, we have an extra spot at this Connecting to the Divine retreat. It's literally next weekend in about 5 days. If you want to come, you can come. And this is how much it is. And just let me know if you want to come. We're going to be talking about connecting to the divine. And of course, I had to go. I mean, I had prayed to God saying, hey, where are you? I need you. I miss you. I don't know who I am. And then suddenly he shows me Lindsay. And Lindsay's life mission is to connect people to the divine. I couldn't just not go. So I went home. I told my husband how much it was. I don't think it was really that much, but at the time it felt like a lot. And he was working full time. And one thing that I absolutely love about Andrew is that he is always supportive. He astounds me by how much he supports me. He's like, I don't understand this journey. I don't know who Lindsay is. I don't know anything about this retreat. This is a lot of money. I'm going to have to take time off work, but yes, do it. And so we did. He took time off work. We pulled from maybe some of our savings, and I decided to go to this retreat that was just in a few days. Now, remember, I had a baby. This was no easy task on Andrew's part or my part, but I knew I had to go. So I drove up by myself, not knowing anybody except for Lindsay, who I had just met a few days ago. And I just sit in the car, and half of me is thinking, what am I doing here? This is insane. What if I don't get along with anybody? I don't know anybody here. What am I doing? And then the other half of me was unbelievably excited at the thought that maybe I might be able to connect with God, that I might be able to connect with myself and find happiness, find some answers to my darkness that had consumed me. And I was ready to do whatever I had to do to get out of that darkness. So I walked into that house full of people that I didn't know. I walked into this beautiful kitchen, and it was just swarming with women who were prepping food for dinner that night. And they're just going away chopping, and I walk in just kind of awkwardly I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know where Lindsay is. But the coolest thing is that the woman who was next to me drops her stuff, whatever she was preparing, wipes her hands off, and then comes over to me and she gives me a hug. But guys, this is not just any old hug. I mean a hug. I am a notoriously horrible hugger. It was actually such a joke that in high school, a kid who I was not attracted to, and I don't think he was attracted to me either, he was like, you don't know how to hug? And he legitimately had to teach me how to hug. I also had a boyfriend in high school who had to teach me how to cuddle because my family just didn't do that stuff. We just weren't physically affectionate with each other. And so to go into this house where a woman who I don't know drops everything, she doesn't know me, comes over and gives me a hug. The hug that a mother would give. Like, guys, this is serious stuff here. The women who were at this retreat actually really think through these hugs, so much so that they intentionally give heart-to-heart hugs. Okay, so picture this. You're going up to somebody and you're going to give them a hug. Just imagine it in your mind. You're walking up to your friend, your spouse, whoever it is, and you're going to wrap your arms around them. Now, which side does your head go to? Are you right cheek to right cheek, or are you left cheek to left cheek? I don't know about you, but I'm going to guess that you're like me and you go right cheek to right cheek. Now, what I learned after this retreat is that all of these women give a hug so that you hug heart to heart, which means that you go left cheek to left cheek, so that as you hug, your hearts connect to each other. And they come and they give you this beautiful heart to heart hug, and they hold you. And they rock you. And it is so unbelievably awkward. But at the same time, like exactly what you need. Like that part of you that's been conditioned to think, oh, this is so weird. A stranger is hugging and rocking me and it's heart to heart. This is so silly and stupid. And then there's that other part of you that's like, oh my gosh, I don't even think I've been hugged like this in decades. I don't even know if I've been hugged like this ever. And it's from a stranger, somebody that I literally don't even know their name and they don't know mine. I think that paints a picture of the kind of women that I was about to spend 3 days with. I think that sets a really good tone for the kind of experience that I was about to have. As I continued through my time there, it became very, very apparent to me, not just the hugs, but that these women were so different than anything I had ever experienced before. Although I think I'd imagined it. I think I'd heard about the theories of the kind of experience there, but I had never actually experienced it. Experienced people who, I don't know, like, let's see if I can paint a picture for you. Elizabeth, who's now a really good friend, was in charge of the food at that retreat. And she did an amazing job. It was delicious, but everything in it had this intention to it. And as we would cook, and as I would help prepare the food, we would all kind of like chip in and help prepare the food. She would explain to me like, oh, prepare this and da-da-da-da-da. I have this meal planned because it's a really nurturing meal. It's like very homey and it helps people to feel at home. But then it went even farther than that. It was like foods that not only supported the body or body systems, but also the mind and even the spirit. And I remember thinking, what? You can pick food that helps support your spirit? What are you even talking about? One of the lessons that Charlotte, the co-host of the retreat, taught was about asking really powerful questions. And this idea, in order to create a good relationship with God and with yourself, is to learn how to ask the right questions. And by asking the right questions and by setting the right intention, that those things can come to you and that you can learn specifically about them. And it was just person after person after person who would talk about these incredibly deep and detailed things. They would say things like intuition and where they felt emotions in their body and the things that they heard in their mind and journaling and their experiences with journaling and how they sift and sort through emotions and how they could feel other people's emotions. And it was like this whole new world. It was a house full of women who were so different than anything I had experienced. It felt so weird to me. And there was that part of my brain that was like, this is psychotic. And then there was the other part of me that wanted it, that needed it, and that felt it actually was familiar. Like something I had experienced at some time, but had forgotten. And I ached for it. I ached to know what they knew. I ached to have these spiritual experiences. I ached to understand to the depth that they understood and have the spiritual gifts that they had. I would just kind of sit in the corner and just listen to the things that they would say and just try to absorb as much as I could. And pretty soon everybody started talking about an event that was going to happen the next day. And this event was apparently something that happened at every retreat. And the majority of the people who were at the retreat had already been to previous retreats, so they knew exactly what to expect. And essentially, what happens, or what is meant to happen, is for the last months leading up to the retreat, Lindsay, the girl who I was so attracted to, so drawn to in the neighborhood, had been designing and curating and crafting personalized necklace pendants that all had spiritual significance, symbolic significance, and a message kind of attached with it. And these were not identical pieces, they were each individual pieces. And the idea is that she would tune in to a message and receive a visual of what it is that she was supposed to create, and then she would create it. And she would also type up a message with it of what it was meant to symbolize. And then I guess what you're supposed to do, and all of this, everything that they just said, of like the idea of tuning in to something and then receiving messages and visuals and then putting it into a necklace, I had no idea. Like it was like they were speaking a foreign language, but a language that I really wanted to learn. The next piece is that she's brought all of this jewelry. They've been individually wrapped into their own like blank envelope, so you don't know which one is which. And the idea is that you're meant to intuitively pick which envelope has the correct, maybe not the correct, but the jewelry piece that was designed for you. And you're supposed to do this all on an intuitive level. And this terrified me. This absolutely made me poop my pants. What am I supposed to do? What does this even look like? I don't know what you're saying. But everybody was psyched about it, and it was like all they could talk about. They were so excited, and supposedly we needed to do it in the morning because it was going to take all day to do it. And I kept thinking, how is this going to take all day to do this? This is okay. So the next morning comes. It's the day of this receiving, and we all gather up in a circle, and we're all kind of preparing for this experience. And what we're told to do is to go into our own space, find some place around the house, the yard, whatever it may be, and just tune in and prepare and set intention and pray and be with yourself. And then when you're ready, come and pick the envelope that stands out to you, or however it is that you received it. And I remember somebody having to coach me through this because I was like, okay, but so I'm like, I'm just going to go pick one. I don't know. Like maybe I'll just wait for all of them to be taken and then I'll just pick the one that's left. I don't know. It came time and everybody kind of goes off into their own little places. And you can tell that like people are really serious about this. And so I just went and found my own place outside because nature is my happy place. And I was like, if there's any place where I'm going to be able to just like tune in and be with myself and center or whatever it was I was supposed to do, is going to be outside. I just walked outside and found a place to sit down on the grass. And I remember just being like, God, these women are incredible. Wow, I can't even describe how incredible they are. And I'm so grateful that you sent me here. I'm so grateful for Lindsay. And I'm just amazed that I was able to come here and be with these incredible women who obviously just understand something way beyond just your average Joe experience. And I don't know if I can be like them. I don't know if I'll be able to understand their language at some point, but I want to, and I hope to, and I pray to be able to. I want to have more spiritual capacity. I want to have a relationship with you like they do. I want to understand this intangible world and feel it and know it and be it and interact with it. That's the intention that I set here today, knowing that I don't know what I'm doing, but that I want to know this. I want to step into this. And I walked inside, and without really thinking much about it, I just grabbed an envelope. One that just kind of stood out. Like, oh, that one, second down, second over, yeah, that one's mine. I went and grabbed it and took it back outside to look at what was waiting for me. Inside the envelope is the jewelry piece and also the write-up. I decided I wanted to look at the jewelry piece first. So I pull it out and I see this very delicate pendant. I'm actually wearing it right now. So for those of you who are watching it, I'm going to pull it out. Okay. So it's this very, very delicate pendant. Very small, very simple. It has a serpentine stone on the top. And I cannot actually remember what the bottom stone is. So next, I pull out the write-up for it. And the headline of it, the title of this jewelry piece, is Kundalini Rising. And I'm like, oh, what? Say what now? What's that? What are you saying? I had no idea what Kundalini was, how it could rise. And it goes into this description, luckily, of what Kundalini was. And so Kundalini, if you're like me and have no idea what Kundalini is, I wanted to define it a little bit here. According to the Webster Dictionary, it says that Kundalini is the yogic life force that is held to lie coiled at the base of the spine until it is aroused and sent to the head to trigger enlightenment. Yeah, you got that all right. Like you totally understood that. Very easy to absorb, understand. Yep, same with me. It says, on the way from the base of the spine, the Kundalini passes through 6 chakras or points of physical or spiritual energy of the human body. At the 7th chakra, the yogi is said to experience enlightenment. It's found in different spiritual traditions, including Hinduism, Buddhism, and yoga. And the awakening process, I just wanted to read this with you guys to give an even more depth as to what this energy is supposed to be. The Kundalini awakening process is a transformative journey involving energy, action, and movement through chakras. The process can be spontaneous or intentional and can occur gradually or suddenly. The Kundalini awakening process has several stages, each with a unique experience and challenges. You can't see my face right now, but it's kind of like this blank stare. So I get this write-up that doesn't say exactly this, but it is explaining this type of energy, this snake-like energy that's supposedly at the base of my spine, and it's going to rise up and I'm going to have a spiritual awakening. I don't think I could digest it at all in that moment. And honestly, it wasn't until writing this podcast that I realized that for the past 7 years, I have had maybe one big awakening or maybe a series of multiple spiritual awakenings, and that I experienced this. And I'm sitting here and it just kind of blows my mind. Because like I said at the time, I had no idea how to absorb this. I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what a chakra was or energy or how this was supposed to happen. What is Kundalini awakening? I don't know. But here I am 7 years later and I'm looking back and realizing, holy crap, that happened. Wow. Okay, let's go on. I want to read a little bit more about what the supposed stages of Kundalini, this spiritual awakening, are. Pre-awakened or growing awareness of the divine feminine energy and a desire to activate it. I would say that was me on that day. I wanted to activate it. I had this awareness of this feminine energy. And even now, as I'm talking about it, I didn't even realize, like, I was in a house full of women with just this amazing example of feminine energy and people stepping into like their power. And I totally experienced and was awakened to this energy. And I definitely had a desire to activate it. It then says, awakening is where the energy moves up the spinal column and through the main 7 chakras, leading to a range of physical, emotional, and spiritual sensations. I can't say that I ever really consciously experienced all this, how it's saying, but I definitely, through the last 7 years, have experienced a wide range of physical, emotional, and spiritual sensations. Integration is where the experiences of the awakening process become a daily routine and part of a spiritual journey. I think I'm still integrating. And then surrender happens when surrendering the ego and deep connection to the divine occurs. And this is something that I've only seen a glimpse of in maybe like the last 2 weeks, as I finally have stepped into a place where I'm willing to share and where I'm willing to kind of just step into my power. And it has taken 7 years to get here. It has been a long journey to get here, and I'm not done. Not even close. Like I said before, I'm not even close. But just recently have I felt a massive shift. And I think it has prepared me to be able to come here and speak to you and share these stories. So I got my pendant, I put it on, and I joined the rest of the ladies. We all circled up together after everybody had a second to digest their own pendant and their own jewelry piece. And one by one, we took the opportunity to share our experience with one another. We shared how a lot of, how we kind of phrase it this day is triggered people. There were a lot of people who read it and it brought up anger and frustration and just like, no, this isn't mine. I hate this. And there were people who opened it and immediately just poured over, just knowing it was theirs, and it held the exact message for them. And it was story upon story upon story of these women who, like, I cannot even rehearse them back to you because they are so unbelievable that you would not believe me. It is something that you would have to experience yourself. And I sat there and looked at all of these women and these amazing experiences they had, and mine was simple. Even the pendant itself was simple. The write-up was simple. It was just a few paragraphs long when other people had this massive message that came pouring out. Mine was simple. And I remember Lindsay at the end being like, I knew that one was yours. I was like, how did you know that one was mine? She said, I didn't make that one until you had chosen in to the experience, until you had chosen to come. And I made that one very last. And it was so simple and so perfect that I knew it was yours. And she was not at all surprised that I got it. The simplicity was perfect. The message was perfect. And I am somebody who doesn't wear jewelry. Like I hardly ever have earrings in, although I do more these days. Like you never ever see me with any kind of big necklaces on. And so it was perfect for me in that way, that it was something that I would wear and it was something that I would appreciate. And it was a beautiful experience to be there with those women where they were so open and they shared so much of themselves so authentically and so deeply. And I went home from that experience completely changed. And I want to go back to the Kundalini energy, because as I was reading up on it in preparation for this podcast, I read about how supposedly the Kundalini energy is dangerous. Sadhguru says, if you activate this dimension of energy, other dimensions of life will open up. One thing is, are you ready for those dimensions? Kundalini yoga, in its essence, is the most dangerous form of yoga. I'm saying it is dangerous because it is the most potent. Now, Kundalini yoga is a way that you can activate your Kundalini energy. I'm not saying I know anything about this because I didn't do any Kundalini yoga to activate this Kundalini energy. This was a process of 7 years of different teachers, of different experiences, of ups and downs. And I didn't do yoga and I didn't do mantras and I didn't do anything to quote unquote activate this energy except for maybe the desire to activate it. But I know what it's meaning when it says it's dangerous. Luckily for me, most of this past 7 years have been a slow and steady journey of line upon line, precept upon precept, of slow peeling back the layers of the onion, of being awakened to different ideas. And it was done at a rate where it was attainable for me. It was digestible for me. Although there were times in there where I would almost have a huge jolt of awareness, where an idea or a concept would come to me or be shown to me, and it would be so vast and so broad and so mind-boggling that you can't come back from it. When you see it, when you hear it, when you learn it, you cannot undo it. And then you have to find this way to integrate back into a society and a culture where, especially in Utah, it's definitely not accepted. Where you have these ideas and these perspectives that you've learned through experience, but you have nobody to share them with and nobody who understands them. It's extremely isolating. It's extremely lonely. And I even remember there were times when I would be like, I'm so scared to learn more because what if I learn more and I can't figure out how to make it work in this life here on this earth? And I would have experiences where I was like, I just don't want to be here anymore. This is awful because I know of something greater. I know of something so much better, but I have to live in this world that doesn't understand it. And And I can completely understand how if I went from that time to where I am now with like that intensity in maybe just a short amount of time, I would probably lose myself completely and not know how to exist in this reality. But like I said, luckily for me, it was all step by step. One step at a time, plant a seed here, watch it grow, experiment on this, see how it develops, see what comes back at me. And that's what I want to do here with you. You don't have to be spiritually awakened. You don't even have to want to be spiritually awakened. It's not about that. It's about taking tools that I have learned through this journey of mine and hopefully giving them to you and teaching them to you in a really tangible, action-oriented way that just betters your day-to-day life, that you can use like right now, right in this moment. Once you're done with the podcast, each week, you can go and you can put this into place, and it's easy and it's actionable and it's attainable, and it creates results for you. It creates the space for you to have the life that you have always wanted. And there's that 7 coming out in me, but I feel it with this fiery passion that your life is meant to be lived to the absolute fullest, that you are not just here to survive, you are not here to just make it day by day, but that you are here to live your biggest and best life. And I have some tools for you. I do. And I say that with confidence because I have seen them in my life. I have taught them to others, and I have seen their lives change because of it. And I don't take any credit for this. I have been taught from other people. I have been taught from a higher power. I have been taught and absorbed just the intelligence around me. But it is beautiful stuff, you guys. It's incredible, powerful stuff. And I'm really excited to teach it to you. After going to this retreat, I essentially started part 1 of Act 1 of my hero's journey. It's the part of the story where you're called to adventure, where Frodo gets the ring and he feels called to go and return it. It's the part of the story where transformation begins. And this retreat, that experience, was the beginning of my transformation. And I've been transforming ever since. And I am excited to take you along on your own hero's journey, to start and ignite this call of adventure inside of you and take you along your journey of transformation. So, if you want to join me, let's start part 1 of Act 1 of our hero's journey. Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a little inspiration. Your support makes a world of difference. Until next time, keep rewriting and reigniting your story.